Holy crap, it's already halfway through 2021. This year has seemed to just blow by at an unprecedented speed, but we are halfway through the year already, or close enough that I'm going to go ahead and do my tier list for all of the books that I've read so far in 2021. Everyone likes to watch me do these lists because I don't like to have to get specific in my rankings, and sometimes it hurts a little bit. But because people like to watch me suffer, I'm going to go ahead and try to do it anyway, and I'll give a little bit of a rundown on my thoughts updated on each of these books, because it turns out sometimes as time passes, I change my mind a little bit on the books that I've read. Honestly, when I was making this tier list, I had forgotten that some of these reads were this year, because it feels like the beginning of this year was an infinite time away, even though I just said it feels like the year is flying by. Anyway, we'll jump right into this. Let's talk about the books that I've read in 2021 so far and what I think of them currently. Here we have the tiers, which are Give Me More, which means I'm craving for more of that. Oh yeah, which means real good still. Which, means it was fine. Not Clicking, which means like I didn't hate it, but it wasn't my thing. And then Nah Dog for like, this was not working for me at all. I believe that this selection of books here is all of the books that I've read so far, I think. I don't know what order they're in, maybe alphabetical. It definitely doesn't look like they're in the same order that I read them, which I think makes it more interesting for me to talk about them. Let's just jump into it, as Philly DeFranco says. An Unkindness of Magicians was a book that I just finished recently. It was the first book that I feel like really didn't hit with my Patreon buddy read selection pick or whatever. I'm going to put this one with, I was going to put it with Not Clicking, but I ended up sort of making fun of it. I made a rant review of this one, which should be available on this channel. I feel like it was trying to be edgy, it was trying to be artsy and beautiful, and it succeeded at neither of them. I felt like it really wanted to almost wanted to get some of that Strange the Dreamer vibe, but going for a little bit more of a hardcore. I didn't feel the beauty, I didn't feel the prose, I struggled with this one a lot. I've thrown around the idea of having a discussion video on this specific book with Leslie from the Nerdy Narrative because she loved this one. I really didn't, and I'm sorry to anyone that loves it. I'm glad that you love it. All right, here we go. Avengers Disassembled. These are the comics that I read at the beginning of the year when WandaVision was going on, and I decided to try to make some videos related to WandaVision. I wanted to read the comics that were sort of supposed to be the inspiration, potentially be some of the comics that it's drawing on for the WandaVision storyline. Avengers Disassembled was one that I just read. The Avengers Disassembled, I didn't read a lot of comics around it. I'm going to say that it was I don't remember all that much about it, which is a huge factor in me rating these higher, is if I remember a ton of it or if it really made an impact on me. So we're going to put it on height. Oh, here we go. Now we get into the Dresdens, where I really have to remember if I remember anything from these books, because the Dresden books, I've talked about this on the channel before, I enjoy them. I have a lot of frustrations with them, but also, most importantly, the cases don't click with me all that much, so I have a really hard time remembering what things happen in what Dresden books. And so let's see, Blood Rights. Which one was Blood Rights? It's one of the two Dresden books I've read recently, which had to be these two, Blood Rights and Death Masks, where they were when this series started finally clicking for me, all the way. I've enjoyed it throughout, but finally enough side characters, enough of the side stories are wrapping together into the main thing that I'm really enjoying it. But what the frick happened in Blood Rights? Because I read Blood Rights and Death Masks so close together, I'm having a hard time remembering which one was which. Okay, I think Blood Rights is the one where it fully solidified, so I'm going to put that one under oh yeah. And then I'm going to go ahead and put Death Masks while we're thinking about it under I think I enjoyed both of these, but clearly I don't remember enough about both of them for it to really cement them both into oh yeah. These are good palate cleanser books. These are fast audio books. James Marsters, as everyone says, does an amazing performance on this track. It's not like he just reads the book. He fully acts this part out, which I think makes it even more enjoyable than your average audiobook. He really gets into the character, and he really does a performance on these ones. Like I said, I don't think they're the most amazing pieces of art, but I enjoy large elements of them while I also find other parts of them frustrating. But I am starting to get into the series. All right, Breach of Peace. Breach of Peace is a book that I reviewed. I got an ARC for, and I sort of wondered after time, is Breach of Peace going to be a book that I sort of like got caught up in the hype of, and I'm really maybe not as hot on it as I was originally. But the truth is, Breach of Peace is a glorified prologue for the world that Daniel Green is building. And as a prologue, when it ends, the only thing I wanted was more. I wanted more of that world. I feel like it ended on a perfect hook. It scratched a lot of the itches that I was having. Some of them I didn't even know I necessarily wanted to see. The way the Breach of Peace ended left me going, dang it, I wish there was a second book in this series I could pick up and start reading right now. And so obviously that belongs on this category. This is one of those books that I feel like is really hard for the community to talk about at large, because there's a lot of people that are huge fans of Daniel, and it's hard to take their opinion completely unbiased, which I get. I also am a fan of Daniel's channel. I watch his channel. But at the same time, there's also people that want to hate it, either because they hate Daniel's channel or because they don't want to follow along with the crowd there. I already had like a 2-minute disclaimer in my discussion of Breach of Peace for this in exact reason. And even in the comments there, you can see like, I can't really trust your opinion on this because it's an author who's in the position you want to be in. For what it's worth, I really thought that it was fun. Other people disagree. That's fine. It's true for every book. But this book specifically is just a hot button topic because it's Daniel Green and he's part of the BookTube community. Golden Sun, give me more. I know this sounds a little bit hypocritical because I was really digging the Red Rising series and I was busting through them. And for some reason, I have not read books 5 and 6 yet. That is not the book's fault. That is not Pierce Brown's fault. That is my fault for being the type of person that starts series and doesn't complete series. I want to get better about this. I'm going to be focusing on this next month. But nevertheless, Golden Sun was an awesome book. The Red Rising trilogy was awesome, and I enjoyed it from start to finish. Screw all those haters who say that book 1 is not very good. There's a lot of people that say book 1 is not very good, and I will fight you. I'll do it. I've got like cup holders on my desk right now, and I will throw them like ninja stars. I will fight you that Red Rising is a better book than people say that it is. And I loved it from the beginning, but dang, does the story escalate, and does the tension and the adventure and the stakes just rise with each book. So I loved Golden Sun. I'm going to put that up there. It's probably going to happen more. We're going to go ahead and put House of M on the I status with this comic book series here. I really wish these books had made more of an impact on me, but they didn't. I think probably if I would have read more around there. If people don't know, I do like comic books. Usually my comic book habit in general is once or twice a year, I'll subscribe to Marvel Unlimited and I will read just a buttload of comics, like a bunch of comics. I will catch up on series that I cared about. I will tend to go back and read old Spider-Mans and X-Mans because I really enjoy those series as well. I'll usually try a couple different side stories or popular arcs that people talk about being really good. So while I'm not the most well-read comic person, I do like to read comic books, and I've read a decent number of them. These ones were really interesting, and I wanted to see the ways they tried to implement them in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but they are not like my favorite comics of all time. I thought they were good. Howl's Moving Castle. This was a book that I made a review for. This was another one of the books that we chose for the Patron Buddy Reads over on my Discord. And this one is the one that I really struggled with. And that's why I'm putting on this not clicking category, because I love the elements of Howl's Moving Castle that we saw. I really enjoyed the character work. I really enjoyed parts of the things that happened in the plot. I loved the interplay between the characters, and I had a lot of fun communicating with people in the Buddy Read chats about this book. But this book didn't really work for me. And I don't think it was just because it was a middle grade book, because I do enjoy some middle grade books. I think it was just because the plot was so all over the place. And even though I enjoyed the characters, I didn't care about what they were doing in a way that I wanted to. Maybe if I reread this book, it would work for me. And that's why I do feel a little bit bad about it. But I have to put it in the not clicking category just because that's truly what happened. It did not resonate with me as much as I wish it did. All right, The Light of the Jedi. I believe that I rated this 3 stars. I don't think I is good enough. I don't think not clicking is correct. I think that The Light of the Jedi has really big problems with it, which is it tries to establish a lot of characters at once, and it doesn't succeed at making you care about really any of them. It tries to do the thing where it tells you a lot of the things that are happening are a big deal. some of them seem like they would be a big deal, and it almost feels like they don't fit right in the Star Wars universe. Like, it's one of those things where this entire thing takes place a long time before the rest of the Star Wars universe that we know. And I'm not a big Star Wars like maniac. A lot of people that care about Star Wars and know Star Wars will probably correct a lot of things that I'm saying now, but it seems like things that they are doing in this book seem significant enough that if they really did happen in history, they should have been adopted in the present time. I have that problem with a lot of prequels. If you make it too big of a deal, it's like, well, why aren't we doing this in the present time? And if you don't make it a big deal, it's not important. If you use characters that aren't related to the modern timeline, you know they might all die because they're not in the modern timeline. This is enough time beforehand, you don't run into that, but you still run into the, well, they can't be that big of a deal, or they should have shown up in history books that we know from already canonized things. Disney threw out a lot of the canon, which made a lot of people mad. I was interested at sort of jumping in here and seeing what their new take on this era of Star Wars was like. It was just a lot of telling, and the showing they did not work right. It was a little jumbled up. It was a little quick. This is like the adult section, and there's an adult and a young adult section of these books. And I don't want to use the term like it felt like young adult degradingly. I just want to say it did not feel like a plot made for adults that adults would have to follow. It felt fairly simplistic, except for the fact that it was bouncing between a lot of different characters that you never cared about. I'm sorry, I don't want to keep dumping on this book, but as time goes by, I like this book less, unfortunately. And I have less interest in jumping back into the Star Wars. I'm really struggling with Star Wars, people. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people enjoy Star Wars. I'm having a hard time caring anymore. And it hurts because Star Wars was important to me as a child. It was really cool. And Star Wars is not as cool to me now. Morning Star, give me more. For all the reasons I talked about Red Rising before, eventually I'm going to get in here and have to like arrange these things correctly, and we could talk more about Morning Star there, but I liked it a lot. Susanna Clark with Piranesi is how I'm going to say this one. I'm going to put this one under awe, yeah. So this one was a book that captured the feeling of whimsy in an adult book like I haven't felt since reading a lot of children's books as a child. It took a fantastical setting and a fantastical story trope and presented it to me in a way that I loved being in this story. I think about this story as it's so dang good. Piranesi is a beautifully written book. It has a beautiful, sweet little boy character, Piranesi, and it exists in a world that I freaking love to think about and ponder and imagine, because it's one of those things that really gets my imagination, my mind juices moving. It makes me feel like a child again in the best ways. Ultimately, the plot is a little bit predictable. It's a little bit more simplistic than something that's going to be like my best of all time list. But dang, is Piranesi a book that you should check out? I have a review for it on the channel if you haven't seen it. But this sounds interesting to you, I suggest that you please go watch it, because Piranesi is a book that I think a lot of people will overlook, and I think that's very unfortunate. Play Dead by Ted Dekker is a tough one for me. It's like a straddle of the balance between I and all. Yeah, I also have a review video dedicated for this one, because as a sci-fi book, I thought it had some really awesome moments. It was a thriller, and it really kept that pace going. It successfully did that. Unfortunately, it's also a Christian book by a Christian author, and I had some beef with the way that he handled those themes, which I talk about in the video review. I have to get into some spoilers to talk about those, so I can't really dig too deep into it. But because that metaphor is such a strong part of the story, I have a hard time with it, even though as a story alone, aside from that, I enjoyed it more. It was hard. All right, Terry Miles' Rabbits. This is a book I finished recently. This is by Terry Miles, who is also a producer who works on like this series of audio dramas that I love. I love audio dramas in general. I've enjoyed many of them throughout my life. This exists in the world of Rabbits, which is a previous audio drama, which I highly recommend if you are looking for audio dramas. I also have a dedicated review for this one, but this is a like techno punk crusty video game nostalgic sort of like 80s throwback, but also like everything is not what it seems. It takes the like X-Files and Twin Peaks vibes, while also being kind of noir-y, while also being, like I said, that techno crust punk kind of thing. And I love it so much. I love the world of rabbits. I love the way things work in this world and the way that the connections are made and the way that it makes you sort of look at things in real life a different way. It makes you free. It's a freaking mind freak. I love the podcast. I really enjoyed this book. I think that this book doesn't necessarily hit all of the highs of the podcast, but maybe if you read it first instead of the podcast first, maybe some of those things would hit harder if you were experiencing them for the first time in the book. It's hard to tell. Technically, it's a sequel to the podcast, but they really could be standalone. But I absolutely love Rabbits, the podcast. I love the book in a very similar way. I've had a very good time talking about this book with a lot of other people, and I just want to point this out again because I've pointed this out before. I put an Easter egg in that video. And I don't want to draw too much more attention to it, but I put an Easter egg in that video and I've tried hinting towards it because there's something weird about that video. And if this book sounds interesting to you, you should go check out that video, maybe spend some time thinking about what you see in the video, see what you can do about it. That's all I'll say. Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. I'm going to put this one under 8 after some time away. I think I give it a more positive rating when I first read it. It's atmospheric. It's got some beautiful writing, but I guess depending on how hard everything hits you, depending on the way that you interpret the story, it can have different themes than the ones that I think come strictly from the book and the ones that come strictly from looking at the book in a metatextual current context. And I think that there are various different ways that you can interpret a story that may make you enjoy it more or less. Taking the book at face value, I think that it was enjoyable. I think that it was a fun read. I'm glad that I read it. It's not going to be like a favorite of mine, unfortunately, but I'm also not going to fight people that I'm friends with that absolutely love it, which there are quite a few. I'm not going to fight them because I can see why they might love it and I don't. But also I don't have any beef with it really either. Red Rising. I've already talked about this one. It's on the Give Me More list. Red Rising is better than people say it is, and I will fight those people that disagree with me. I'm sorry, but I will. Red Seas Under Red Skies. This is the sequel to The Lies of Locke Lamora, which is a book that I absolutely love. The Lies of Locke Lamora, I'm going to set this here for now. The Lies of Locke Lamora was the first book that I read on BookTube that I naively felt there is no way this will not be a 5-star read for everyone. For some reason, when I finished that book, I was like, holy crap, this clicks like so hard with me. This ticks all the boxes. There's no way people won't love this book. And then almost right after that, Elliot Brooks released a video where she talked about how she didn't like The Lies of Locke Lamora. And I was like, no, I thought this was the one book to unite us all. Red Seas Under Red Skies doesn't live up to the hype of the original. It is fun. It still has many elements from the original that are good, namely the characters and the character banter between those characters and everyone else. There's some excellent dialogue that happens in this book. Unfortunately, I think I said in the review for this, it almost feels like Scott Lynch wrote mediocre fan fiction in his own world, and like he wrote like 2 different fan fictions and tried to mash them together and it didn't click. It does not have the robust, full, unified piece of the original Lies of Locke Lamora book. It was enjoyable. It was a huge step down. I am still super interested in reading the 3rd book and continuing along with the series, but like the first book I would consider like massive, awesome masterclass. This one's like, okay, this is all right. And also I understand I have friends that dislike this book strongly, and I get it. I really do. I don't dislike it as much as they do. As I said, to me it was still fun, but this is by no means nearly as good as the original Lies of Locke Lamora book. Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. This one is tough because it either probably goes at the like bottom end of aw yeah or the top end of aight, because I'll probably put it at the bottom end of aw yeah. I really enjoy this series. It's very different. This book is so weird tonally compared to the rest of the books on this list because it It's almost like a darker, twisted version of Willy Wonka, which is something that I love. Willy Wonka is one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. Don't at me. But it's very like surrealist. The things here don't have logic to them, which I love and don't love. The characters in this story, they're not one-dimensional, but they are beautifully naive in a way similar to Piranesi. But Piranesi exists in this whimsical story, and Senlin Ascends is almost like the beginning of this epic that has to do with this massive kingdom that follows odd rules and has all these mysteries, some of which I expect to be solved, and some of which it's hard to tell if it's supposed to be mysterious or not. This is a series that, frankly, I'm super interested in continuing because I've heard that it has excellent female characters. I've heard that it explains some of these mysteries in a way that's super awesome. I want to know that Senlin as a character, I want him to be okay because I don't want him to be corrupted by the evil of the world that he exists in. I want good for Senlin. And so I want to continue with this series, but at the same time, it wasn't like the most awesome thing that I read. So I'm going to put it at the bottom of all yeah, with the potential of that going up in the future as I continue along with the series, because I am very intrigued. Shadows of Self. I'm going to be putting that Mistborn Era 2 one that Give Me More category. I read Mistborn Era 2 as a whole this year. I was sort of using Mistborn Era 2 as my like filler pace changer books before I started reading Dresden, and I found out that I'm one of the larger Mistborn Era 2 fans that I know of, because everyone just says Mistborn Era 1 is so much better. It's this epic dark fantasy. I'm like, Mistborn Era 2 doesn't try to be an epic dark fantasy. Mistborn Era 2 is an action-packed, pulpy adventure that it's awesome. I love the story. I love the characters all across all of these books. Shadows of Self specifically is one that just like decides to tackle some really interesting, deep topics in a way that makes your brain think, but it's also a crazy action story. I love Mistborn Era 2 so much. The fact that we are currently getting Wax and Wind Book 4 makes me so happy. I feel so bad for the rest of you people, the few Mistborn Era 2 fans that are out there that have wanted Wax and Wind Book 4 for so long. You've had to wait so very long. I just read them this year and I'm getting it next year. I don't have to wait like you people, and I feel bad. And frankly, I think that us Mistborn Era 2 lovers should gang up against the people that don't like Mistborn Era 2 and fight them, because this is the reason why we didn't get it until now. Because so many people probably pooped on it and he had other priorities. It was like, dude, Mistborn Era 2 is secretly amazing. I've said this before. I don't know if I've said it in a video or not, or just on my Discord, but I feel stronger about wanting to fight Brandon Sanderson if he kills off any of the Mistborn Era 2 characters than any other characters in the Cosmere. If you want to kill Kaladin in the Stormlight Archive, it's got to happen eventually. You want to kill any of the characters in the Stormlight Archive, it's going to happen. But if you touch Brandon Sanderson, if you touch any of my sweet children from Mistborn Era 2, I am going to be so personally destroyed that I'm going to have to publicly probably burn your books on this channel. And that sucks because you're my favorite author. But if you freaking harm a hair on my sweet baby Mistborn Era 2 children's heads, you'll get these hands. Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. This one hurts to talk about because I love the Farseer trilogy so dang much. Last year, I was completely blown away by how much I love the Farseer trilogy. That was a series that was going to be sitting on my TBR probably infinitely. But my Patreon supporters voted for that book, the Assassin's Apprentice book, for the buddy read on my Discord. And I fell in love with Fitz and the crew there in a way that they became like personal people I know, and I am so strongly attached to that Farseer trilogy that as time goes by, I want to read it more and again and not like read new stuff, which I don't get that reread itch often. But I freaking love the Farseer trilogy. And when I picked up Ship of Magic, I was ready for that Hobb energy, and I could not care less about certain characters that we read about in Ship of Magic. I hate some of them so much, and some of them you're not supposed to like. But the scenarios that the characters end up in are, in my opinion, so unrealistic given the state of the world. And I know people are going to be mad at me and they're going to fight me again because we already had conversations about this when I talked about it the first time. I could not buy so many of the characters are in bad positions because of completely self-inflicted trauma or bad decisions that I don't feel like fit the characters based with what we knew about the characters at the time. And I never got past that hurdle. But enough time has passed that my love for Robin Hobb has me wanting to read the next book in Ship of Magic. So while I put it under Gnaw Dog, it might belong under Not Clicking, because now that I've had enough distance from Ship of Magic that I go, okay, regardless of my still feelings that I have towards this series, if I just accept it for what it is, I might still end up loving this because I've loved some Hobb work in the past. Either way, I'm going to push through this to get back to my boy Fitz because I need more Fitz in my life. But unfortunately, I'm going to put that under Gnaw Dog. It was just such a massive disappointment for me, and I really, really, really had a hard time caring about it. It sucks. It sucks a lot. Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This was another book that was on my Patreon buddy read, and I'm putting it on the oh yeah category because it made me feel things. I think I said in the review for this, I understand why some people don't like this book. It's quite long. It is very slow, but it spoke to me. It was beautiful. I loved the character, the primary character, Laszlo, and the adventure that he went on really started affecting me. And then Laini Taylor decided to use the end of the book. I don't know why, but she decided to use the end of that book to write a personal attack against me as a person. Me, Michael Knipp, I know she wrote this book years ago, but somehow she decided to use the end of this book to hurt me directly, knowing that I would read this in 2021, and it hurts. It's very confusing, and it's very mysterious, but it also hurts a lot. And I don't know if I'm ready to read Muse of Nightmares, which Muse of Nightmares is the most metal and awesome sounding sequel to a book ever. Muse of Nightmares is an amazing book title. I haven't read it yet because I'm bad at finishing series, but Strange the Dreamer, it was really good. Summer Night. This was a Dresden book that I also read this year that I had forgotten about. This one, I didn't care about it. This one did not work for me at all. The major plot that was happening, the humor that was happening wasn't clicking for me on any level. I don't want to say that I didn't enjoy it because it was short enough and I listened to it while doing other stuff that I was like, okay, I can ignore some of the stuff. Summer Night did not click for me. It's probably the worst Dresden experience I've had so far, including the first one and the other one, the werewolf one that everyone else hates. This one, to me, I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it to work for me necessarily. I'm so glad that some of the books before it and after it have worked for me in a way that I can just forget about Summer Night. But if you guys are Summer Night defenders, go and comment down below why I should have loved this one more, and I don't, because I really don't remember caring much about it at all. The Maidens by Alex Michelis. Every time I freaking do this, I right click. The Maidens by Alex Michelis. I'm gonna put this under I have a video review for this that I just put out, and you can watch that for more in-depth thoughts. But this one was a struggle for me because I really enjoyed my time with the book. It engaged me throughout. I at no point was bored. I never wanted to put it down. I always wanted to know what was going to happen next. I was interested in the characters. But it was a thriller, a psychological thriller that had an ending that to me felt so far out of left field and so unearned with the foreshadowing that it had tried to do. It felt so random. Like sometimes you have a story and a twist feels so completely random and unearned that it doesn't work. This is the way that this book felt for me. So I really enjoyed my experience with it. I would definitely recommend it to people, but also if I was to try to be like, put on my criticism hat and judge this book, I could have a lot of beef with it. And that beef would come from the fact that it didn't, I don't say it didn't make sense, but if I was going to like chart it out and write it as like, this is why this story is so awesome, I couldn't do that because I'd be like, this seems not great. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. I love The Silent Patient. I really did, which is why I was so excited for this. So I'm going to put that under our The Alloy of Law, Freaking Mistborn Era 2, of course, give me more. I'll rank this stuff later. The Atlantis Gene. I'm going to put this under, so I'm a big A.J. Riddle fan from what I've read from him so far, which is his Space Trilogy, like the Long Winter Trilogy, as well as his Extinction Files books. This one was his first work, and I think that it was clear that it was his earlier work. I think there are parts that are a little over the top, like even more over the top than he gets later on, which is saying a lot because A.J. Riddle likes to shoot for the moon. And I also think that there were just some parts that it wasn't his most perfectly executed work. Nevertheless, I do plan on continuing with the series. I think I'm going to enjoy it, but it's one of those things that you sort of enjoy as this like pulpy action thing that isn't super great, but you still love anyway. That's the way that I think I'm going to feel about the Atlantis Gene and the rest of that trilogy. Is I love some of the stuff that he has done later much, much more, like especially the Extinction Files. No, I can't even say that because I really enjoy the Long Winter Trilogy too. I like both of those series for different reasons, and they've really stuck with me in a way that I don't know if this trilogy
I'm not sure I understand.
Holy crap, that scared me. Siri thought I was talking to her and talked to my ear. And I heard a robot ear while I was talking. And I knew nobody was down here, and it scared me so bad. Now that I'm shook, I'll take a drink. For those of you that don't know, I am that much of a coward. I'm very much a coward sometimes. Back to the Atlantis Gene. It was fun. It was good. I'm probably going to enjoy the trilogy. It's going to be at the bottom of for me because I do want to read the rest, but it's not my favorite of his work. Bands of Mourning for Mistborn Era 2. Here we go. All right, The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. I'm going to put this somewhere in the Ite category because parts of it were beautiful. Parts of it I think were weirdly handled. Parts of it were a little bit pretentious. I have a dedicated review for this one that I made a video for it closer to the source, and hopefully it will make some sense. But I wanted this book to be amazing for me, and instead it was only okay. I enjoyed Addie's plight. I sympathized with her some, but ultimately the way that everything went down, it was like it was almost there, but not quite there. And instead it was like, okay, I'm glad I read this. This is a talking point. I think it's going to get an adaptation at some point, and I could be like, I was the cool person who read the book before you got it. Whatever. I don't like to do that anyway. But Invisible Life of Addie Larue was a book that I enjoyed, but I wish I enjoyed more. I had higher hopes for it. The Only Good Indians. Dang it. I'm also going to put this probably at the bottom of because I really enjoyed the prose in this book. I really enjoyed the way that we were able to look at certain social issues regarding the Native Americans in a comical but also like introspective light, while also getting a wild set of horror circumstances. This book was a book that I was enjoying but wasn't loving. Then there's a part where stuff really goes down, and it hit my pleasure receptors, and I was like, yes, I love this book. And then sort of as we got to the final part of the book, it sort of shifts gears a little bit, and I really didn't like the way that it ended. I felt like it was, I guess I can't talk about it at all without spoiling it, so I'm not going to spoil it. I enjoyed this book a lot. I did not love the ending, like the final absolute ending of the book, but I enjoyed everything else surrounding it. And so I would love to read more Stephen Graham Jones in the future. I really thought this book was really cool, and it was very different than some of the stuff that I normally read. But yeah, the ending just didn't sink for me. And then Winds of Strife. Winds of Strife for me was a book that on paper I should love. I've talked about it with other people who have enjoyed it, and there were a lot of things that clicked for them. For me, it didn't click. And I now that I've talked to more people that have read it, I think maybe the issue is like the mindset I was reading it in. I'm not sure, because Winds of Strife is an awesome concept. It's almost like a Brandon Sanderson style magic system that instead of being based on metal or whatever the frick Stormlight is, it's based on emotion. It's by the independent self-published author Yuji Gutman. He's a super nice and cool guy, but when I read this book, I really struggled with a lot of the elements of it clicking with me. Since talking to other people, I think maybe it was the way I was going into it. I don't know. I know other people that have enjoyed it much more than I did on initial read, so I'm going to put it under this not clicking section here. But once again, if that idea of that magic system sounds cool for you, you should go check it out. I think the author's a super cool dude, and I recommend you supporting him if you want to check out that book. And that does it. Holy crap. This is not the biggest list that you'll see on BookTube, but this is my list and it's honest. I think most of my vibes have remained the same. I think the books that have shifted the most are probably the Star Wars book has shifted a good bit because I was more mediocre on it and I'm way more negative on it now. That might be the only super big shift on this list. Maybe Rebecca. I might have given that 4 stars initially and it's more shifted to a 3-star for me. I'm not sure. Somebody will have to go check that for me if they care. But yeah, I've been having an awesome time reading in 2021 so far. I'm looking forward to reading more awesome books. I think I mentioned this early in the video, but I'm hitting this point where I'm just going to be like, screw this. I want to finish some series. And I think I'm going to go through some of these series that I've started and just start cleaning them up because I do a lot of starting series and I don't do a lot of finishing series. And on some level, that's cool because I'm always getting something new. I also can't talk about these series with a lot of people that are fans because I've never finished any of them. Like, am I the stereotypical millennial who just like can't commit to anything? What do you think about the way that I rank these books? Oh, frick. Oh no, I forgot I'm probably supposed to do these in order. The hard part. Frick. All right, here we go. Give me more. Red Rising. We're going to put Morningstar here. Morningstar, Red Rising, Golden Sun, Breach of Peace. Oh, frick. Breach of Peace is going to go at the bottom of these, I guess. We'll put the Alloy of Law, Shadows of Self, Bands of Mourning. It's hard for me to know there because one of them is less involved in the Cosmere and the other one is more deeper. How about we do this? This is the sucky part because the Bands of Mourning has a lot of awesome reveals in it. It's also the third one where we get a lot of my favorite characters' moments, but also the story overall is not as cool. Where do I put these books? Do I put it based on character moments where I will put Bands of Mourning as this one? Or do I put it as just complete surprise where Alloy of Law blew my mind? Or do I put it as weird things that made me ponder philosophy where Shadows of Self is here? I don't know. This is the part that sucks. I'll put the Bands of Mourning because it has awesome character moments. I'll put Shadows of Self because it has the pondering part. I'll put Alloy of Law because while it is this awesome sort of standalone action pulpy thing, it's not as connected to everything else. Even though I freaking love the Alloy of Law so much, it's still in the Give Me More category with Breach of Peace, which is also still awesome, which is said, I love it. Oh yeah, there's no way that Blood Rights belongs at the top of this list. It's probably going to be Rabbits at number 1. I had originally said Sunland was going to be lower, but I don't know how I'll do that because thinking about this stuff has me putting it maybe more aligned like The Only Good Indians is better than the Atlantis Gene. I'll probably put the Atlantis Gene last. Strange the Dreamer. If I'm feeling how I'm feeling right now, The Only Good Indians is above Strange the Dreamer. Sunland Ascends is actually going to be higher than I initially thought it would be. All right, we'll go to the I category. Red Seas Under Red Skies and Death Masks will be higher in this category. The comics can go near the end. I think that I liked House of M more than Avengers Disassembled. Daphne du Maurier can go here. Did I like The Maidens or Play Dead more? Probably. I enjoyed both of these books on the way through, and both of them I really sort of had problems with the ending. How about that? Sure. And then Gnaw Dog will put Star Wars at the bottom. We'll put yeah. Well, yeah. All right, that's my final list. You freaking happy? Any of you people who are like constantly fighting to make me have to rank things within things like this instead of just letting me be happy with categories, that was for you. It did hurt me to do. It makes me so frustrated because I don't freaking know how to classify them. I don't know how to pick favorites among my children. Anyway, now, do you think I made a mistake? What do you think about this? If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you thought that my rankings are crap, go ahead and give it a thumbs down. Be honest. Let's just be real here. If you have any major things that you would like to say about what I did here, please leave a comment. Those are always appreciated. I love talking to you there. If you would like to see more videos from me in the future, please remember to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you'd like to be notified when I post new videos, you can hit that bell, turn on the notifications. So then every time I post a video, your phone, YouTube, and Theory will let you know. If you'd like to talk to me more directly about this or anything else that I mentioned in this video, or anything else that I haven't mentioned in this video, there's a link down below to a Discord where everybody can join and we have fun conversations about books and other things. And if you'd like to support this channel financially, and you'd like to be part of those buddy read, and you'd like to be part of those Patreon buddy reads, you'd like to be part of the Jackbox game nights that we have every month, there is a link to the Patreon down below as well. Thank you so much to everybody who has been watching this video, to everybody that watches any of my videos, to anyone that talks to me about books ever at all in the YouTube comments or in the Discord. I love you guys so much. 2021 reading has been fun so far, and I hope that as the year goes by, I'll just continue to read more awesome things. Thank you again for watching. Until next time, for me, next time you have a chance, just take a little nap, enjoy the sleep, feel refreshed, and then hit me up on Discord and let me know that you did it for me. It will help me in the long run. I will sleep vicariously through every one of you. Goodbye.
Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If it don't show up, I might get fired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired.